In this coding challenge, you had to write a Python program that prints all the elements of a list on the same line separated by a space, without the square brackets. Let's see how you can solve this challenge. First of all, we need a list, right? So we are defining the list right here and we are assigning it to a variable. Then, after assigning it to the variable, we just need to write a for loop. This is the first option. I have two options for you, and the second one just requires one line. But right now, let's use a for loop. For each element in the list, we are going to print that element, but now right here, we are using a new parameter called end. End just denotes or represents the character that is going to be added after each element that is printed. So it represents how you're going to separate the elements that are printed in sequence. After printing each element, in this case, we are going to add a space, and the next element will be added after that space on the same line. Instead of adding them on a separate line, because by default, this parameter has this value, which is the new line character. By default, each element is printed on a new line because we have this character right here that denotes a new line. But if we replace that by a space, we are going to print them all in the same line. Let's save the file and run the code to see what we get. We can see this right here, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All the elements printed on the same line without the square brackets or the commas and separated by a space. Great, so this is option 1. Let's see how you can solve this challenge with option 2. With option 2, you also need the list, of course, but now we are going to print them like this using just one line of code. How do we do that? We take the list and instead of printing the list directly, we add an asterisk before the list. What this is doing is unpacking the list or getting the individual elements of the list to print them in a sequence. And how are we going to separate those elements? Well, with a space. Instead of separating them with a new line, we just separate them with a space. And they will be printed on the same line. Let's see how this works by commenting this code and running the code. Like this. You can see that the elements were printed separated by a space without the square brackets and commas. They both work exactly the same. Great, so now you know how to solve this coding challenge.